Everybody, for all you people who wanted to see me slide down the slide, you're gonna have a slide down with me, so let's get going. Not as slippery as I remember it being when I was little. Wait, here we get to the slippery part. There we go. Okay, Cezale, that was specially for you. Down from up there, all the way to here. Didn't need any batteries. Anyway, let me just set up my tripod for a moment so I can talk to you clearer without having to hold this in my hand, which is not the most comfortable thing to do, strangely enough. Almost there. Almost there. And let's open this up. There we go. Okay. And we'll put up the light so you can see me better. The better to see you with. Oops, there we go. Okay. In any case, in today's podcast, what I like to talk about, today's Facebook Live, not just podcast, what I like to talk about is blame versus responsibility, or fault versus responsibility. Now, when I was a young girl, my parents used to fight a lot about all sorts of things. It was part of the way that they interacted with each other. They're still together after 60 years, so they must have done something right. But as a child, it was very hard for me to hear all that fighting going on. And very often I would just say, stop fighting, it's all my fault, I take the blame, it's okay. Now, they never corrected me. They never said, no, it's not your fault, no, it's not your blame. They just continued fighting and they just ignored me, sort of. But I kind of got this idea about how everything was my fault. Now, in truth, it wasn't my fault. And fault and responsibility do not go together, because even though it's not my fault, I can still take the responsibility to change things so that'll be better for me and it'll be better for everybody else. Now, what do I mean by that? Basically, in any situation, the moment you say it's somebody else's fault, and I said this before, you're giving them your power. You're saying they need to change for me to be happy. And that's not such a great place to be, in my humble opinion. I'd much rather be in a place where I have the power to change my own situation, my own life. Now, here's the thing. When I take responsibility, I'm not taking the blame and I'm not taking the fault. All I'm saying is that if whatever they're doing is triggering me, there must be something inside of me that's being triggered. Because if it wasn't inside of me being triggered, I wouldn't be triggered. So if I go in and I release that trigger, what they're doing can't bother me anymore. And no one else who does it can bother me either. And so I'm no longer saying it's their fault, my fault, it's nobody's fault because I don't feel it anymore. Now, here's the thing. When I work with people, what I generally say, they start fighting, it's his fault, it's her fault, I say, all right, let's get rid of whatever you're holding inside. After you get rid of whatever you're holding inside, let's do Groundhog's Day. And I told you about Groundhog's Day. I learned it from Paul and Stacey Martino, who learned it from somebody else, but it's a great technique where basically you go over the situation, you see what happened, you see how you can do it differently so that the next time around, it doesn't happen. You don't feel the same way. So basically, you turn it into a learning experience as opposed to a blame game experience. Now, the good thing is that I taught all my kids about this blame game, about not playing the blame game. So if ever I slip, and I do slip like everyone else, my children are always there to remind me, Mommy, are we playing the blame game? And then I quickly snap out and we say, all right, I go, I release whatever's bothering me, and then we do Groundhog's Day. See, okay, where do we move on from here? And how can we do this again in a different way so that we don't have the same problem? So basically, remember, fault and responsibility do not go together. You have your own personal responsibility to change your life. By changing your life, you will inevitably change other people's lives. But it's not your responsibility to change their lives. It's their responsibility to get rid of whatever's inside of them that bothers them. So if they're triggered by something and you're triggered by the same thing and you're at least triggering yourself, they won't be able to push your button anymore, but that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody else won't push their button. It's their job, their responsibility to release whatever they're holding inside of them. And nobody can make another person happy. The happiness comes from within and not from without. And when you start remembering that, things get a lot easier and a lot better because you no longer start putting the fault. It's his fault that I'm not happy. It's her fault that this isn't working right. It's his fault that that's not working right. You take the responsibility on yourself. You change what you can from the inside. You play Groundhog's Day. You see how you can do it better the next time around. and you move on, and that's it. A learning experience, not a failure, but a learning experience. A failure is only a failure if you don't learn from it. The moment you learn from it, not learn a failure anymore. It comes a learning experience. So remember the order: release whatever's triggering you, Groundhog's Day, and move forward in a better way, a way that this won't happen again. And once you've released it inside of you, you won't get triggered anymore. And by the way, I don't play that fault game anymore. It's not my fault anymore. If it's a trigger that's inside of me, I just release it and I move on. And it's a much better place to be. And I can tell it to my parents straight out when they start blaming me for something. I'm like, nope, not my fault. If it was my fault, if I do think that I'm responsible, I'll take the personal responsibility and I'll change it. But I won't let anybody else put the responsibility on me. I constantly remind them, you want to give me your power? Okay, I'll take the power, but you have the power to change by yourself, and that's a much better place to be. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, give a like down below. I always love getting those likes. Otherwise, remember, I'm here to make the whole world happy 1% at a time, starting with myself, and as I make myself happy, it ripples out to everybody around, and everyone around, and everyone around, until the whole world eventually gets happy. And I'm here to make as many couples as possible stay happily ever after married together. Have a great day from YolanaMixon.com.